Hello, welcome to Simply Wicked. My name is Dawn, and today I am showing you a really quick tutorial, about 20 minutes, on using the Litha Altar Card that I have available on my website. I have two projects to show you today. The first one, I will be using cardstock to print out the image. This is the front and the back. The back of my cardstock is plain, but you are welcome to also print out a design or anything on that back side. So the inside of the card is not plain. What I'm doing is just cutting around the border of the card. Now, you don't have to use cardstock. You could use really any kind of paper that you'd like, photo paper, regular printing paper. I'm using cardstock because I want this to be a bit stronger structurally. Uh, even with different kinds of paper, regular printing paper, because we're folding it in half, it'll still be a lot thicker. I prefer cardstock here. So once it's all cut out, you'll see that there is a line going up the center. We're just going to fold along that line. And this is where you can see the inside of the card. You could also have printed on the back. So folding it. And then I'm just going to kind of look and go around and do any type of trimming that might need to be done. There might be a little overhang. So just neaten it up a little bit. And now this doesn't need to just be used as an altar card. You could also use this as a holiday greeting card. You could print whatever you'd like on the inside. Just for an altar card, though, you would want to use adhesive, whether that be hot glue, to all four corners of the inside of the card. But I'm just going to do three. I want to make this into like a mini pocket, which again may have looked better if the inside had also some type of printing on it. But you're not really going to see it when I'm done. So I'm just taking my hot glue and running it along three of the edges, leaving the top open. And then I'm going to press that down good, making sure that it's sealed. Now I'm making a little pocket because I thought it would be a cute idea for the holiday if you were spending time outside, hiking, walking, and you gathered anything up from like the forest floor. If you're in the forest, you could actually put that in here. You could also date the card, like write the date on it, who you were with, what you did, and just keep it as a little reminder, a little memento of this litho. But you could also add to it, making it kind of like a almost like a vase, a flat vase, but like an altar card too. You could use dried plants. You could use faux plants, which I have here. You might be able to use real ones as long as they're not wet. If they are wet, you could probably line the inside with like a Ziploc bag just to keep the moisture from going through the card. I have some leftover Halloween netting, which I buy up like crazy. I have white and black. This netting, I'm going to be kind of pressing down to the inside of the pocket. You could also use raffia. You could use different grasses, faux grasses. You could use moss. For the sake of the video and making it, as quick as I could for you, I am just going to use this, which it looked really cute. It also breaks up that hard, blunt edge of the top of the pocket, the top of the card. Another idea while you're cutting out the card from the cardstock, you could use some of those decorative scissors. So there are some scissors that uh, have a design uh, on the blades so that when you cut, it actually makes a designed border. That would be great too. Here I'm just using some faux plants. I can't remember where I got these faux plants. It was a really long time ago. Um, Probably Walmart or the dollar store. I know I got uh the mesh that I'm using on the inside of the pocket, that material, that was definitely from the dollar store. I buy those up like crazy. Come Samhain, I buy them like nuts. I use them for everything, for my tables. You can use them as curtains. Today I'm using it to line the inside of my altar. And this is just some baby's breath I'm sticking in there also. So, just an idea. You could, again, use things you've collected from your outside walks. I've got a little feather in there. Things that represent the summertime, strength, vitality. You could put a little scent. You could make this into a scent sachet, like put some herbs or some scented uh, rocks in there and make it into like a scent sachet for your drawer or for your altar. So there's the first thing. First little project. You could also use the back with the poem on it. For the front, you could reverse it. The green man's face does not have to be in the front. The next project is done almost the same way, except I am going to be printing out the image on wrapping tissue paper. So as you can see here, I've taken some masking tape. I've cut out wrapping tissue paper to fit the page, and I've taped it down from the front and the back so that when I place it into the printer, there are no loose edges. They are taped down. You place it into your printer, whichever way is the right side to print on, and you just print right on the wrapping tissue paper. I got this at the dollar store, so you don't have to go all crazy with what type of wrapping tissue paper. I'm going to gently peel off the tape here because I'd like to save this cardstock for the next thing that I'm printing out on tissue paper. If you don't want to save your cardstock, you can just cut out the image from here, but I like to save it and reuse it as much as I can to not be too wasteful. You do want to be very careful because the wrapping tissue paper, I don't even know if that's the right name of it, but that's what I'm going to call it for the sake of this video. It's very, very delicate. Um, you can easily tear it. So you definitely want to be, you can see right there, it it almost ripped. So definitely be careful with it when you're trying to tear it off. And you can see that the cardstock, it does stick to the tape sometimes. You may not be able to reuse it to print an image on it, but I will definitely reuse this to reprint another image onto the wrapping paper. You can see here how thin it is. You can almost see my fingers through the paper as I'm cutting. So already it's thin. Now, there are other ways to make this even almost transparent. I may do another video on that. That uses wax and heat, uh, and it will come out almost transparent. So I may do a second video on that. If you guys are interested, let me know, and I'll do a video on that too. So again, we're starting out just like the first project. We're just cutting out the border of the card. Now, this one I'm going to place onto a faux candle. You can see how thin and delicate it is. If you hold it up to the light will shine right through it. See, you can see my fingers through it already. And once you apply like Mod Podge or wax, it gets even more transparent. So like I was saying, I'm going to be placing this on a faux candle. So I'm going to cut this page in half because I want the green man's face on the front of the candle and the poem on the back of the candle. You could also just do one. You don't have to do both. You could just use the green man, or you could just use the poem. You don't necessarily have to use both sides of this. As you can see, if you are going to, it does work better if you cut it in half because it doesn't fit all the way around this candle at least. This faux candle is plastic. It is not like, I know some of the faux candles have like a wax coating or they are made from wax. This is actual plastic. So what I'm going to show you next is a little water trick. And what I'll be using is just a little tiny container of water and some Q-tips. I'm going to dip the Q-tip into the water, and I'm just going to go around the edges of the card, maybe a half an inch, not even, a little less than that. And when you do this, it allows you to tear away the edge of the paper, and it gives it this old parchmenty torn look. It just helps it to give it that old look. And the card already has a parchment design on it, so this just kind of adds to it. The paper, as long as you're gentle, the paper should not rip past the wet point. So if you think of it that way, you have to place the water where you want the rip, okay? Because it won't rip as long as you're gentle. It won't rip past that. Sometimes it will come off in one easy strip. Sometimes it won't. I probably should have done this before I cut it out. I would have had an easier time, but it's still working nonetheless. Crafting and doing DIY is all about learning from your mistakes anyway, right? Figuring things out. So we'll get it done. It's no problem. And now you see, sometimes it does come off in a strip. There we go. But you do still want to be very, very careful with this. It is still very delicate. Now I'm going to need to cut up the center and do the same thing to the center pieces. Once I'm done with this last side, you can see how easily sometimes if you're even a little too rough, it just tears. But I love this method. Every time I work with tissue paper, like printing, I use this around the border. I just think it looks so cool. It gives it that old, whimsical, mystical look. And here I'm just cutting up the center line to separate the front and the back of the card. And there we have the last of it. So I'm going to grab my plastic faux candle. You could also do this on a mason jar, the light behind it, which you could use a real candle. If you're pasting this to the outside of the mason jar, the flickering light behind it would look beautiful. I may do one of those and then post it at the end. Here I'm using a very, very thin layer of Mod Podge. You could also use white glue, but you want it to be a thin layer. With this tissue paper, if it's too thick, you're going to get a lot of wrinkles. Now, if that's the look you're going for, because it could also add like an old, mysterious touch if it did have wrinkles in it. But that is not what I wanted here. I wanted it to be smooth. So I'm using a very, very thin layer and applying the front of the card. And you can see just from that how it it's almost transparent as far as the background color, the parchment color. And now I'm doing the same to apply the poem to the back. I'm using a sponge brush to get that on. And just pressing it from the center out. Now, I mean, technically, you can be done here if you wanted to be. The light from the faux candle, when it's lit, will also add a glow behind the picture, just as it would if it was a real candle. However, I, some point during this video, remembered that this candle was actually broken. So I will show you an idea that you can use if you do have a broken candle, a broken faux candle laying around the house, a way to kind of fix that and keep it in use. Once you have the images where you'd like them, uh, I prefer to go over it again with just a light layer of Mod Podge. This helps those ends that we ripped to stay down and not lift. It also adds a little more transparency to the tissue paper. You don't have to do this step. Excuse me, you don't have to do this step, but I prefer to do it here just to keep the ends down. I believe this is matte Mod Podge that I'm using. You could use any kind of Mod Podge that you'd like. Or I think white glue for that matter. You know, that would work just as well. Or even if you make your own Mod Podge. So there's the front. Oops. And as you can see, I'm applying from the center out again. So when I'm applying the tissue paper to the candle, I'm making sure to kind of press from the center out. And also when I'm applying the top coat of Mod Podge, I'm working from the center out. And really, I mean, that's to prevent bubbles, wrinkles, and to just help those edges stay down. And again, really, if you wanted to be done here at this point, you could be done. However, I happen to save a lot of my teas that are expired, super duper old, or that I just didn't like, and I use them for my crafts. So here I have some tea. I have Damiana, which is, it still looks really good and it smells really good. I could still use it. However, it's an old bag. I'm placing messy drips of hot glue around the top of my candle. I'm not really trying to make a drip. I'm just applying a messy thick layer. It's going to naturally drip down where it wants to go anyhow. And then applying some of the Damiana. Again, you could collect this from the outside and use something you have collected from the outside. You could use moss, real moss or bought from the store to attach. But I'm kind of going for the look of a dressed candle. And if you're someone who works with candle magic or candles in general, you may already know what I'm talking about. A dressed candle is when you are using a candle and you can apply an oil, an anointing oil, roll it in herbs, or you can heat the wax, apply your herbs, dip it in more wax. So it's just a candle dressed with dried herbs. You can, for this candle, even go with uh, dried plants, fruits, flowers that are associated with the season. For the sake of this video, I was just grabbing some extra that I had available. I also run around the inside a little bit. And then this is the other tea that I have, very ending of a tea that I had purchased a while ago. This has a mixture of jasmine, hibiscus, I believe it's juniper, maybe juniper or elderberry, but it's got beautiful tones of like muted purples, muted like maroon colors, and the beautiful like off-white to yellow color of the jasmine flower. I just think it really, really added nice color to this that you see in the summertime. If you do this, there is a possibility of covering up part of the poem in the back. So when you're working on the back, if you don't want the poem to be covered in herb, you can just kind of be really mindful of where you're placing your glue. I just spread it on there. At some point, I remember that this candle is broken and I won't be able to light it. I'm just piling it on there, nice and thick. I just really love the look of that. And it allows you to, uh, use some of the items that you have in your home. I think that's super pretty. Uh, for your crafts, use some of the items you have in your home for your crafts that you're not using anymore. Right now, I think I remember that this candle's broken and it's not going to work. So I have done this with numerous candles before, the ones that don't work anymore. If you are very gentle with a pair of pliers or anything, you can grab onto that faux flame gently and cut it out or twist it out. So that's what I do here. And instead of using that faux flame candle that's broken, you can put a uh, electric tea light inside. So obviously the tea light is not going to go down into the candle with the flame, the other fake flame there. So that's why I like to take it out. You have to do it gently because if you don't do it gently, you could risk cracking the entire inside of the candle, which I have done before. So, as long as you're mindful, as long as you're very gentle with it, it won't break the inside of the candle. What you'll do is just either pull out the faux flame or you will break apart the faux flame. Mine here is plastic. That's another thing you want to make sure it's not glass or anything that's going to harm you or cut you. We don't want to be doing that during our craft making. But mine is plastic, so I can easily just kind of cut that out and place the faux candle back in, dig a little hole. Now, the faux candle you could paint to match the color of the candle. You could drip glue over this little tea light and apply herbs like you did to the rest of the candle, or you could just leave it as is. And it will still look really pretty with the lights out shining off of the herbs. So there you have it. A few ideas that you can use the Litha card for. You can find the Printable on my website. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it sparks your imagination and to make something that is truly unique and memorable for this Litha holiday. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Blessed be.